You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group and co-hosts Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com, Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com, and Henry the Flowmaster Schwartz from Cboe. The Option Block is brought to you by Cboe. Cboe's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Cboe Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively Cboe. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the Cboe products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means it is Thursday. It is noon Central. It is 1 p.m. Eastern. Do you know what's popping off in these crazy, wild markets? Let's find out together, shall we? It is time once again for the Option Block, your favorite, I know it's my favorite, bi-weekly source for all things options related. And I hope you're enjoying the new additions to the network. The Futures Rundown coming at you twice yesterday, a double header, because I will be traveling next week down to the Securities Traders Association National Conference to see what's going on over there at the intersection of stocks and options, and maybe sprinkle a little crypto in there as well. All sorts of fun. So look forward to some fun stuff there. But that means all of our pro folks already got double doses of not just the Futures Rundown, but also Options Bootcamp yesterday. So if you missed it all, it's all up there for you on the pro feed right now. The rest of you will get episode 2 of each coming at the same bat time, same bat channel next week. Of course, if you want to get access to that stuff early, you want to get pro Q&As like our awesome one just earlier this week with our buddy Mr. Matt Amberson from ORATS, taking on all comers, tackling all sorts of questions. It was a wild show this week, as well as Options Oddities on Friday and much more. Only one place to go to begin that journey, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. That'll get you over 150 just pro Q&As now. And then you add on the oddities and all the other fun stuff that's up there. It's over 400 episodes of just awesome goodness waiting for you. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro, the place to go to learn more as we learn who's joining us on the old program today. First, let's go out to the hallowed halls of Cboe East, where we are joined once again by the Flow Master himself, Mr. Henry Schwartz from the aforementioned Cboe. Mr. Flow Master, welcome back to the show, sir.
Oh, well, thank you, Mark, and glad to be with you as always. It's a beautiful day in New York. It's been a really nice early fall, I got to say. And these markets are kind of exhausting, so we got plenty to talk about.
Might need to take a nap in the middle of the show. There's just so much whipsawing going on. And speaking of taking a nap, I think he's doing it right now. He is the Rock Lobster himself, Mr. Andrew Giovinazzi from Option Pit, rocking his customary main uniform of the flannel. Mr. Rock Lobster, welcome back to the show, sir.
It is a pleasure to be back, and it is a lovely fall in Maine as well. So it's been quite nice. I've been putting some miles on the new rowboat, so I've been happy about that.
All right, and then joining us last but certainly not least, I think actually he is least because he is still in the mobile office, so we'll get to him in a little bit, listeners. Of course, the unklest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike Tosaw, as we keep on rolling into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the trading block, the portion of the show where we surprise break down what the heck is trading, what is lighting up our tapes. And as Henry said, it's kind of been an exhausting market. You check it out in the morning, you see what's going on, you see where the markets are heading, you think, okay, I have a sense of what's going on in the markets today. And you go on about your day. Maybe you go to your day job. For me, it's doing a bunch of different shows and engaging with all the content we put out for you. And then you're checking the markets, obviously, throughout the day as you're doing shows. You're like, wait a minute. That narrative I had at the start of the session is wildly off base now, because now we are somewhere else. And then a few hours later, we are somewhere else again. It's one of those types of weeks out there, listeners. So we'll see if we have another one of those in store for us today. We were looking a little more decidedly mixed to red to kick off the show today. That was kind of following the theme of selling off and then rallying that we've been seeing throughout much of this week. And that seems to be the case again today. Selling off a bit earlier. And then now, as we're kicking off the show, bulls have the bit in their teeth yet again. S&P up about 0.5%, Dow up about 0.33%, and the NASDAQ up nearly 0.75%. And let's check in on our old pals, small caps, because chances are they're doing something interesting. And they're up about 1.25%. So small caps telling all the other major indices, hold my beer, kids. And then VIX cash continuing to erode to nothing, which is not an unwelcome development if you listen to our options oddities last week, listeners. 17, it was actually closer to about 17.75 right before we kicked off the show. It had eroded to 17.5 right as we kicked off the show, which puts it down about exactly 2 points. As we're looking right now, it's down to about a 17.35, and that puts it down even more. So vol continuing to erode. Again, not going to get angry at that one. Vol of vol also continuing to go the way of the dodo. As we kicked off the show, it was about a 103. That puts it down about 10 points from where it was this time last week. I'm sure if I re-rack that one right now, it'd probably be lower as well. So vol continuing to get taken out to the woodshed, listeners. We'll see if that continues, or again, if we get one of these whipsaw days and all of a sudden by the end of the show we're down 1.5%, then probably not. So just enjoy it for what it is. The market's right now as a snapshot, listeners, because where it goes from here is anyone's guess. But I know where we're going. I don't have to guess. Let's go around the horn. Let's go the way we started. Let's go out to the Flow Master first. Mr. Flow Master, sir, as you mentioned, kind of exhausting markets. I wouldn't blame you if you need to take a nap in the middle of the show. What's been catching your eye in these, we're up, we're down, we're middling markets, sir?
Well, yeah, yesterday's reversal. I mean, we have gotten used to some pretty big swings, but to just kind of turn around on a dime yesterday and run up, about 100 handles in the futures I think it was pretty surprising. I'm not sure if it was some the early weakness was post-debate kind of shuffling of positions, and I think that there were some AI comments that helped us balance. But it certainly is a great market traders, who are not, who are being cautious, I guess, and keeping their positions small and being nimble. So, we're seeing, VIX back at 1720, which it feels a little low to me just based on the kind of moves that we're seeing. But, it's kind of today's actually a nice day to kind of relax a little bit, because we're not seeing any current swings, but you never know. Things sometimes flip at 2:00 or 2:30. Just a busy one.
Are you trying to talk VIX back up for your now infamous VIX above 20 for the rest of the year prediction? Is that what we're doing here, sir?
I meant average would be 50, would be 20 of all the days.
There we go. He's like, this is too low. It's got to be back up to 20. I don't know what we're doing here at a 1720. That's just not allowed in the Flowmaster household. Let's go out to the Giovinazzi household. Mr. Rock Lobster. Kind of been another wild one this week, sir. What's catching your eye?
I have to agree with Henry. The 17 feels a little light, but crisis averted. I guess I think it feels like the market is swinging between. I feel like it's a Rocky Apollo Creed fight where Apollo looks good for a while, then Rocky looks good for a while. It's like a slugfest, and finally one man standing. So, or they both go down. But I mean, at least for right now, you have a soft landing, and then CPI. Okay, so the number. So still have inflation. It's not gone away. We don't have price deflation yet. But we have it's going down less, and prices are going up at least a little less in some cases. So, you're looking more like 2.5%. Again, depending on what you're looking at. I think energy, housing, and food. I guess they take it out of the index because nobody uses that stuff. That's still in the threes. I don't even know how it's 3%, but whatever. So you have that part. So it's definitely not as bad, but I think people can agree. But the prices have not come down. Then you have unemployment. Okay, now the numbers. Okay, they look a little weaker, but still job growth. So you're a little of, a little. Let's just say you got a little of. So again, you got a little back and forth, is what I would say. So I think at this point now, the market's just assuming the Fed is going to cut 25 basis points, and that's that. So usually when we have more certainty about what the Fed's going to do with rates, we rally. That's how it's been for the last 2 years. And besides this August 5th swoon, and I guess last week when everybody freaked out about the employment numbers, we're back to that mode again. So it's kind of okay, we're sort of back to what we were doing in 2024. And that's sort of what I see right now, because we haven't had no new earnings. And I guess lastly, just AI has sort of taken off again. I think NVDA has had a 18-point move or something. Yeah, it was 103 2 days ago, and now it's trading 119. So it's hard for the market to go down when NVIDIA is not going down at this point. So those are all positives.
Speaking of positive, he's usually our note of positivity, our ray of sunshine. Not so much on Monday. He got a little hot at the results of the 80s Trivia Challenge. And now he's joining us. I think he's still a little angry because he's joining us fashionably late. None other than the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management. Uncle Mike, welcome back to the show. Have you come down from the ledge that you were on Monday, sir?
I mean, I still feel the same way I feel. I don't believe in the everybody gets a trophy scenario. I think it's bad for society, and I don't want to be a part of such a thing. But in terms of the markets, the S&P is now only roughly 70 points off its all-time high. And so yesterday was quite the day for being a day trader. I mean, if that's about as textbook as you're going to get for a V-bottom. I mean, we went down to 54.06 as the lows of the SPX, and then we finished. I think we even touched 55.60 at one point. And so, if if you are nimble and you're having small positions, if you got in at the low 5400s yesterday and you just let your profits ride, you had a really fun ride yesterday. That's what you did. So there are times to where I look at it, I'm like, wow, it's like Toby, my good friend Toby Keith, who has no idea who I am, God rest his soul. He once said, should have been a cowboy in one of his songs. And days like yesterday make me want to sing, I should have been a day trader, because that would have been a fun bottom to buy. That's for sure. So with this, the thing that I'm noticing today that's really lighting up my tape is we have a 4% move in SLV. So we're getting silver up fairly significantly. We have a little over a 1.5% move in gold. So we are seeing some things out there that the old inflation hedge gold is definitely going higher on the day today. Of course, you always have to look at NVDA in this market. That's up just a measly 2% on the day today. It had kind of a big day yesterday, that's for sure. And then some of the other individual names with which I'm watching, we had a pretty decent sized sell-off on JP Morgan yesterday. Or this week we have. And so today it's still down roughly 1/3%. And then in terms of the sectors where we are at within the sector world, I can't really say that this is fairly broad-based, I would say. I don't know if there's one sector really sticking out too much. You could make an argument for consumer discretionaries, but the thing that I am noticing, it seems to be an occurring theme on this show or in recent times. The Russell does whatever the heck it wants. Everything else is up maybe 0.5%, and the Russell's up a full percent on the day. They're like, we do what we want. We're on our time. This is what we do. So continuing to watch those things, and then also the big rates are always going to be in the news. We have a little bit of a minor sell-off, and I would even call it a sell-off, a slightly down day in the bond world. But that's what I'm seeing today.
All right, let's see what we're seeing out there in the rest of the market. And is it a bit of a banger out there? The answer is kind of, yeah. It's a decently active day, all things considered. Let's go out to VIXland first. Everyone's saying 17.25 seems too low. Well, volume-wise, it seems pretty aggressive out there today. 708,000 contracts on the tape already in VIXland, so not that far away from the 1.04 million ADBE already. So a pretty hot, a pretty spicy day. The big dog out there, 56,000 of the SEP 17 puts and 55,000 of the October 19 puts. 51,000 for number 3 of the NOV 19 calls. Number 4, 51,000 as well of the NOV 19 puts. So I smell some spread action there. And number 5, 48,000 of the OC 19 calls. So 19 strike driving all the action out here today. And hence why we're at 708,000 contracts already. But SPY, also no slouch, 5.65 million, so well over a million, about 1.3 million above where we typically expect SPY to be this time of day. The ADB, 7.9 million, so it seems well on pace to hit that today. The S, one of the few, and I wouldn't even call it a laggard, it's just kind of right about where we expect it to be. In fact, I'm sure if I re-rack it right now, it might be exactly where we expect it. Yep, almost 1.71 million contracts, so just a tick below the 1.75 million we expect this time of the show. The ADV right around 2.95 million out there for the S. Small caps, 770,000 contracts on the tape, so also looking pretty heavy. The ADV, 1.32 million, so yeah, seems on pace to hit that. And the Q is also looking pretty heavy, 2.65 million. We usually expect about 2.25. This time of the show, the ADV a little bit shy of 4 million, 3.87 million. So everything looking pretty heavy out there today, with the exception of the S. But is it a heavy day out there in single names? The answer is no, not really. Unless you look really towards the top. But outside of that, not really. It only cost you 194,000 contracts to break into the top 10 today. So that's pretty light. 150, 160 is kind of the floor we usually would expect for a very quiet day. And let's say the dog days of summer, which we're not that far away from, or, late December. So we're not looking at a banger day out there. But number 10 gets you to our old pal Neo. It has been a perennial top 10er, at least for the last month or so out here, at least the last few weeks. And remember, it was for a long time. Every week, Neo was up there. Then it got kicked to the curb by this AI move. Let's see if Neo can cling to its place. Right now, it's barely managed to hold on by the tips of its fingers. NEO number 10, 194,000 contracts. Trading 518 right now, off 42 cents or about almost 8%. It's had a wild ride over the last month. It was trading 370 just a few weeks ago, end of August. Then they rallied it all the way up to about 560 just yesterday. And now coming off the other side of that a little bit, but still obviously up substantially, up about 37% so far this month. So been on a wild ride for number 10. That's NEO. Number 9, listeners, now we're getting to some of the names you probably expect. It's Alphabet, a.k.a. Google. 203 on the tape for them today. They're trading 154 and a third, up 320, a little over 2%. Good for the number 9 spot, 203,000 contracts. Number 8, keeping it to the usual suspects, the artist formerly known as Facebook, 523 and a quarter, up nearly 11 and a half bucks or 2 and a quarter, because why not? It's a day that ends in Y, and why not rally Facebook 11, almost 12 bucks. Number 8, 261,000 contracts on the tape for Meta. Number 7, AMD, 279,000. This one, a little bit different story. You might think everything else is rallying hard, going to catch a bid for AMD as well. And right now, it's up about half a buck, but it's only about 1/3%, trading 150 and about a third. Let's see, on the day, it's had a range of 147.65, so they did take it lower earlier in the day. The high was 151 and about a quarter, so it's had a decent range out there, hanging out towards the upper end of it right now, even if it is net only up about half a buck. Number 7, AMD, 279,000 contracts. Number 6, Palantir, taking it to the next level over the course of the past month. It's up a little bit today, 17 cents, but on the last month, it's up 560 or nearly 20%. So they've had a nice run, including just a week ago, they were trading 30 bucks, now 35. So they had a nice little lift over the past week out there. Palantir on the rampage. Good for number 6, 288,000. Good for Peter Thiel, who's got about a bazillion shares of it in his IRA somehow. But I digress. Number 5, it's Amazon, 440,000 contracts, 185 and a half, up about a buck or about 0.5% out there today. And again, good for number 5, 440,000 contracts. Let's see, range-wise, it got down to 183 and a half on the low end. 186.20 was the high, so about 270 was their range so far today out there. And again, good for number 5. Hope you like A-Tech names because we got number 4. If you thought, the Apples and the Amazons and the AMDs was all the A-Tech you're going to get these days, allow me to present our newcomer to the top 10. It's AVGO. Seem like they're going to be hanging out for a little bit. Number 4 today, 453,000 contracts. A 165.30, up $7 exactly, or about 4.5%. So quite the rampage. They've had almost a $10 range today. 156.83 on the low, 166.32 on the upper band. So, man, they have been running out there for good old Broadcom. Number 4, 453,000 contracts. Number 3, keeping in the A-Tech names, it's the fruit company, looking comparatively sleepy. 222.85, up about 20 cents today. They've had a little bit of a range, though, actually, outside of this. They got up to about a little north of 223, which is pretty much where they are right now. And the low was actually 219.82. So they had a little bit more action than you would assume just by checking them out right now. Good for number 3. Still very light, though. 458,000. We're all the way up number 3, and we're only at 450. There are many days when we'll see 450 at number 6 or 7 or 8. So number 3, 458, not exactly a banger day. Number 2, Tesla, 230 and a half, up about $2.50 or about exactly 1% out there right now. They've had a range today as well, 223.83 on the downside, 231 and about a half on the upside. So they're doing some living out there today. Right now, 230 and about a half, so about a buck off their highs. Good for 1.3 million contracts and the number 2 spot. That means you know what number 1 is. Lobster just talked about them getting the bit in their teeth over the last week after taking a drubbing. It's NVDA up another almost $2.50 or about 2.1% today, trading 119 and about 2/3 actually. Good for 4.09 million. It's been a little while since we've seen NVIDIA hitting a 4 million handle by this time of the show. And you got to go back to the heady days when it was putting up nearly 11 million contracts to get something like that. The range today, 115 and a third on the downside, 120 and a quarter to the upside. So they've done a lot of living today as well, nearly a $5 range. Good for the number 1 spot, 4.09 million contracts. I said we had a good chat in the Pro Q&A with our buddy Mr. Matt from Orats. They're also cranking away at some of our earnings data, listeners, if you want to check it out. We are coming to the tail end of the season, but we still have a lot of hot data in store for you folks. We had Oracle after the bell on Monday. GameStop kind of stinking up the joint on Tuesday. Dave & Buster's on Tuesday as well. Yesterday, the Rock Lobster's favorite. When he's not wearing flannel, he's just loving his floral prints from Vera Bradley on Wednesday. And then Thursday, we have Adobe and good old Kroger. So you get a little bit of supermarket action in there as well. Also had Big Lots before the bell today as well. They've had some issues of late. Let's look really quickly. We got some earnings move results. Hot off the presses because we like it. Let's go out to supermarket vol, shall we? Kroger today before the bell, 51.5 is where they were going into their announcement. As we ran this report, they're at 53.20. So they were pricing in 5.3%. They were underperforming at the time, only up 3.3%. Again, we always say this is the frame of reference thing. So if you wait 5 minutes, you'll get a different answer. And now here we are right now, showtime. Kroger's at about 54.5, so at about 5.75%. So pretty much right at or slightly outperforming what their straddle was pricing in right now. So again, you don't like what the market's giving you these days, just wait 5 minutes out there, listeners. Now let's keep rolling out there to what's coming up. Adobe after the bell today, they are at 580 and about a third when they ran this report. They were pricing in almost $40 worth of movement, $39.60. So pretty juicy. And in the past, they've moved about $36.50, so a little over $3 worth of extra juice. Is that merited? Nearly 10%. I guess we shall find out after the bell, listeners. Oh, the meatballs favorite, Darden Restaurants. Next week, 19th before the bell, 157 and about a half is where they were trading. They're pricing in 686. In the past, they moved 421. So, wow. A little over 260 worth of extra juice out there at Darden Restaurants. Interesting. They obviously got the memo, which is the season still a banger right now as it's drawing to a close. Right now we're at 124%, which is slightly higher, just a little bit above our long-term average of 113%. So everyone who voted yes, we are going to beat that long-term average this cycle. Looks like so far you are the winner chicken dinner. There's a few more names to get in there before we tally it all up for the season, but it does seem like it is trending towards the more vol is the winners front. The lone real light week so far this cycle was week 5 with 96%. It's the only one we had coming in under 100%, and it was pretty darn close. Everything else was 104% or substantially north. 153 week 2, 135 week 3, 140 this week so far. I mean, just been bangers almost every week. So at least for right now, buy and vol has been the order of the day, as it's time, listeners, to keep on rolling with the show right on into the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, listeners, it's Thursday. It's time to unleash the Flow Master, see what caught his eye out there. And Mr. Flow Master, your first one, I'm not that familiar with it. This ticker, do you pronounce that Nevada? Is that how you say that?
You know, I don't think I've ever traded NVDA, and weirdly, but I figured I was too late for the super run up, and I know it's been a fun name, but I'm just not super comfortable with it. But I had to put NVIDIA down for an odd block, because if you look at yesterday's trade of the day email, which I know you get, it's just basically clogged up with NVIDIA call buyers that paid off relatively insane amounts of money given what the stock did. The biggest one at the top of the list is a super short term. So the Friday the 13th, these are the 114 strike calls that expire tomorrow. So these were bought yesterday morning at 9:38. Stock was at 110.91, and they paid. They swept across a bunch of exchanges paying 88 to 92 cents, but the average was still 88 cents. 19,000 of these, they closed at $3.77 with, which is a return of over $5.5 million or 300%. And I mean that we, I do eyeball this report every single day, and any day there's a trade, an option trade that makes more than $1 million, I take a little closer look. I don't remember the last time I saw a $5.5 million winner on just a scoop up. They basically bottom ticked the stock, and it's great. Wish it was me.
Yeah, you're not out there slinging 85 cents for options in NVIDIA to go a couple of days. What's wrong with you, sir? I don't know why you wouldn't do such a thing out there. Yeah, the stock 110, you're not saying, hey, what's 114 for nearly $1 amongst friends with a couple of days to go? Yeah, clearly a banger. Mr. Rock Lobster, how many of these SEP 114s expiring tomorrow did you gobble up for 88 cents, sir?
I did not gobble up any, but our some people in a trading desk, we had a strangle from the week before. We rolled the puts down in the maelstrom, so we did have some upside that did pay pretty well. I thought the 115s were dead, and they what do we have? I think the 115s are the 110s, and they sprang back to life. So I think that's quite an amazing trade, by the way. They had somehow their nose, maybe they knew that Pelosi was loading up, because she's probably the best NVIDIA trader on the planet right now, besides this person.
She only does the long-term calls. She doesn't play in the 4 days.
Oh, that's right. She doesn't do the weekly stuff. Not that we know of.
We don't know what Paul's up to out there when he's slinging his NVIDIA. Let's keep rolling. Let's go out to First Energy Corp, ticker symbol FE, trading $44 and about a dime right now, off about a dime today. So not exactly a banger day for them. On the year, it's been a pretty decent year. Was trading a little bit north of $35 a year ago, so they're up about 23% on the year. They sold them off to their low in October of about 32 and change. So from there, they're up nearly $12 on the year. So it's been a good run, and it's been mostly straight up. You don't see a lot of real periods of sell-off or pause, so it's been pretty much straight up. So everybody's loving this privately owned electric utility out of Akron, Ohio, listeners. And Mr. Flowmaster, sir, what did you spot out there in everyone's favorite Ohio energy company?
Wait, Ohio, isn't that where they're eating the cats and dogs?
Apparently, yes, sir.
I couldn't resist. Sorry.
They're eating the children. They're eating everyone.
So yeah, First Energy. Now, full disclosure, I got long a call spread in this after I saw kind of what was going on today. So it was compelling enough for me to take a very small vertical call spread. But stocks around 44.10, and calls lead puts, I think, about 4-1. The call volume is unusually heavy. It's almost 9-1. In First Energy, 2,200 calls around 260 puts. And the block that caught my eye on one of our unusual directional flow scanners was the D's 48 calls. A sweep buyer paid 35 cents for 2,000 to open. There's no open interest at all. These have a little time to work. They got, really almost the rest of the year. But they're $4 out of the money. And so I bought, I think, an October call spread just because I'd kind of like to, lean into this one a little bit, see if anything happens. And it's just, it hasn't hit I haven't really noticed it before. It's really not the most active name. Stock's kind of near the highest level it's been in the last year, at least. And looks to me like the option to stock ratio, which is one of the things we keep an eye on, is at kind of a 52-week high as well. So the stock itself is not really doing very much. It's barely traded 500,000 shares today, which is light, but that option volume is significant to me.
Yeah, I'm looking here. If you like this, you could buy that OC 45-48 call spread. Obviously, you're getting less time, but you can get a much better strike for probably around the same amount of money. I mean, the market on these 48s is atrocious, but you could definitely, you don't need to spend 30 unless you really want all that time, listeners, in which case, I suppose you could. But yeah, when in doubt, try to take the more profitable route. If you want to replicate that same vertical in December, it's going to cost you around 90 cents to $1. So yeah, interesting stuff. Mr. Rock Lobster, are you down for this coal-fired nuclear, hydroelectric, wind, and solar power generating facility in Ohio, sir? And do you like the Dees 48s, or maybe more of an AAPL vertical the way Flowmaster's going?
I can see why Henry did the AAPL vertical just because of it is a utility. So, normally buying the out of the money calls in a utility is kind of hard. So having the cheap, more near the money stuff a little better. I've noticed a little bit more activity, actually since the debate, even like some of the green energy companies kind of sprang back to life. Post debate. So you've seen a little action there. So which, and maybe First Energy, I think, has a little more of a little more green bent. So people are coming for them. Although I would say that would be for a stock like that, it would be aggressive. It hasn't been up there in a while, but at least I would say the time is right. Post-election, post all that, I think those have a shot, but I would rather work a little close to the money via spread personally. But
all right, we'll keep an eye. I may or may not have just put a bid in for that spread, so we'll see. We'll see if we get filled to have some fun to talk about later on in the show. As we keep rolling, let's go out to the super sexy world of REITs, listeners. Yes, it's our old friend Medical Properties Trust, ticker symbol MPW, trading 571, so looking pretty sexy today, up about 90 cents or 18.5%. So, man, this is a banger REIT, 19% in a day. Maybe it is sexy. On the year, let's see. It's been a tumultuous year. A year ago, it was trading $6.50. Then they smoked it down to $2.92 to start the year, right around January. So pretty much ever since the start of the year, they've had a decent run. But yeah, it was a rough start to the year, listeners. And it looks like they rallied it up to about almost $6 back in May. Then they crushed it back down to $4 exactly in July. And then they've tried to rally it a few times, but this one seems like it has more legs, shooting straight up today up to 571. So not quite the high for the year. That's 664, but still looking pretty good. And we got somebody out here who probably is already smiling all the way to the bank on this one. We saw somebody scooping this morning. You don't see a lot of aggressive upside call paper in REITs, but that's what we got cooking today. 9,326 of these SEP 5 halves. So at the time, the stock was 5.25. So these were still 25-cent out of the money calls. And they paid 13 cents for them. These are only going way the dodo, listeners, next week. So this is a weekly swing for the fences here for 13 cents in a REIT. Not usually a home run style trade name, but today looking pretty good. They paid 13 cents, and with the stock 524, I'll have to go look, see where they're trading now. But spoiler alert, much higher. I got a feeling they're going to be happy campers with these. Mr. Flowmaster, what are your thoughts? Getting some meme stock call flow in a REIT, sir.
Well, actually, today was one of those days. It occurred to me that maybe I should start running my query that checks how many inverted skew single stocks we're seeing. Kind of how that compares to where we've been for the last few weeks. It does feel like, I agree that, as there's, becomes a little bit of clarity on the presidential election, you're going to see some people, kind of quickly moving from, maybe kind of, fossil fuel names into green fuel names, or, or basically, I think like, for example, that First Energy one, that could be kind of one of these AI energy plays too, right? So, it doesn't. I think one of the slides I was working on for a presentation I have tonight, because I do a lot of those, it has to do with the up vol versus the down vol, and kind of the meaning, like how big are the up moves versus how big are the down moves, and not just thinking about volatility as the kind of how big the moves were, and just breaking it into up and down. And there are some periods where the up moves really are bigger. They're kind of that which really does justify this upside, justifies that inverted skew. So I kind of feel like it might be kind of a good moment to kind of hunt around for some meme stocks and or names that might go meme, and try to put on some conservative positions, little lottery tickets.
Mr. Rock Lobster, again, a REIT, a medical REIT, not usually known for meme flow, but lighten it up today. What are your thoughts, sir?
Pretty amazing buy. I think they've more than doubled already, right? So is that the bottom for medical REITs? Because there's, you have all the gloom and doom stuff. My Twitter feed is like, I basically subscribe to everybody on Twitter. I want to hear, all of FinTwit. You got the bulls, bears, whatever, and everything is like, oh, commercial real estate. And then all of a sudden you get just medical REIT just blowing up. So maybe a little contra indicator action there, I would say. So just something maybe for folks to keep an eye on on that score. But which would be good, right? So, but the thing is, how do they know? All right. Like, that stock hasn't done jack since we've been watching it for how long, right? And now all of a sudden it gets a 20% move in one day just because of, and they go grab the most, the calls with just the biggest potential pop ever. I have to say, somebody is very, very, very fortunate in their choice, in their timing on this one.
How dare you?
Yeah, and there's massive call volume in here too. So I was going to say, they selected the right calls to purchase.
How dare you imply some shady business is afoot in MPW, sir? I am offended on behalf of the good MPW traders everywhere. By the way, listeners, a total of 17,000 of these things have traded now, so it's quite likely they're trading right around 40 cents. It is quite possible they've already gotten out. Just take their money and got the heck out of Dodge, because how often are you sitting on pretty much 2-3xers in a call buy, a weekly call buy in a REIT? Not very often. You get the heck out of Dodge. You get while the getting is good, and it's time for us to get into the mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the mail block.
All right, listeners, our question of the week this week is a timely one. We will know the answer to this by our show on Thursday next week. Of course, we're talking about the Fed. Everything backs into the Fed these days. Will they, won't they? What will they do? Will they sit on their hands and do nothing? Will they go half point? Will they go a full point, go crazy? What's going to happen out there, listeners? So we put it to you. We said everyone's debating what the Fed should do next week. If they do what's expected, if they cut a quarter of a point, what do you think happens next? What happens to the markets? Do we get, the strong rally? Because, hey, finally they're cutting rates. We've been waiting for this for a year, 2 years. We finally get an A rate cut. It's not what we wanted, but, hey, it's something. Is that going to be enough to lift the markets? Is it going to be, it's not enough of a cut. We're going to crush this market, big sell-off. Is it going to be kind of a meh, a shrug your shoulders, not a heck of a lot, or something else entirely? Uncle Mike, we will start with you, sir. What do you think happens next week if the Fed does what's expected, cuts a quarter point?
I think that's what I think they are going to do, and I think we are going to have kind of a meh. I think we'll have a big move one way, a big move the other way, or after the rate announcement. But I think ultimately, at the end of the day, the market's going to do what the market's going to do. I would be. It is the only thing that I think it's going to be a quarter point, because in the. I talked about this a couple weeks ago on the show. The talk amongst high school football coaches is that they think rates are definitely coming down fairly significantly. So just because of that, I think we're just going to go with a quarter point. I think it's going to go, and I think the market's going to go meh.
So the high school football coach, they're the new cabbie, they're the new barber, huh? That's the high school. What's the high school? What's the assistant D-line coach? What does he think about the Fed? That's what I want to know out there. So, I like it.
Pretty much.
I like it. All the new indicators we're getting here on the show, listeners. So I guess fade the D-line coach at your peril, listeners. Mr. Rock Lobster, same question for you. Quarter point, that's what we're pricing in. What do you think happens if that comes to pass?
I think, right now you're seeing what's happening. They're ramping things up. We're probably going to close 5,600 today after 5,400 not very long ago. And I think, I'm going to agree with Micah. It will be okay, we got what we wanted, maybe a little bit of a brushback. And then, okay, we're going to do what we do because AI is going to save us, because we're back. It's clear we're back in the AI rally mode, and that deficit thing, and, the $300 billion deficit for the month, right? That used to be the deficit for the year, like 20 years ago, or not even, right? Like what, 10 years ago? And now it's a monthly deficit. So at some point, it will be a something, or somebody tries to fix it. But for right now, we're just singing a happy song. And right now, with rates coming down, the market cares about the happy song. So any swoon, and at this point, we're back to all-time highs. That's on the AI all-time high train.
AI all-time high train. The last word is yours, Mr. Flowmaster. Fed cuts a quarter a point, which, by the way, I'm looking right now at the Fed Watch. We are at exactly 75% probability of a 25 basis point cut. 25% for a 50 basis point, and nothing else even in the offing. Usually there's a percent here or there for something else on the board. Nothing. That's all they're pricing in right now. Mr. Flowmaster, sir, what do you think? 25 basis points, what happens?
I do think that they'll cut 25, and I think we'll rally a little. I kind of think we'll gyrate, but in the end, I do think that the way things are now, I think everybody agrees valuations are a little high, but where else are you going to put your money? There really is still a pretty steady stream of cash into equities. So I say we rally, but I don't think anything super extreme is going to happen. Not like the swing we saw yesterday.
Oh, and Mr. Rock Lobster, inspired by your discussion, really, on the Monday episode of the Option Block, we did do a flash poll just for you. We said we were debating the Heathers on the Monday episode of the 80s. We said, inspired by our 80s trivia segment on the Option Block, we said, who's your favorite Heather from the 80s? Heather Thomas or Heather Locklear or that other Heather? Pick your Heather. Mr. Rock Lobster, this is your poll. Who do you think won?
Oh my word! I'm gonna say I'm gonna go sleep. Heather Thomas won.
Oh,
I'm gonna go Heather Thomas. She was my favorite.
I know, so that's your
choice.
You were a vocal advocate of the Heather Thomas. I think captain of the Heather Thomas fan club. I think you were back in the day. No, Heather Locklear taking it with a wide margin, almost 78% to 22%. So I'm sorry to say, sir, I fall with you. I'm more in the Heather Thomas camp, but apparently our audience disagrees, sir. So there you go.
It must have been when she put on the cop uniform and TJ Hooker that sent it all over the edge.
That's what killed it. Yep. But the fall guy, those are some good years, sir. As we keep on rolling right on into Around the Block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to Around the Block, where we tell you what we're keeping an eye on until our next episode. And coming into the end of the show now, markets hanging out pretty close to where they were at the start of the show. S&P up about 0.75%, Dow up about 0.5%, NASDAQ up about 1%, and VIX at about 17 1/3. So not much has changed since we ran the numbers at the start of the show. Let's go around the horn. Mr. Uncle Mike, we'll start with you, sir. What are you keeping an eye on until the Monday episode? We're not quite to the Fed just yet.
Not quite. No, I just want to see if we can hit all-time highs either tomorrow or, well, maybe on Monday. That would be kind of fun if I can do my trademark staying on Monday. That would be fun. And then just continuing to watch bond movements as well. And then what the heck, watching presidential polls because it's entertainment.
Mr. Flowmaster, same question for you, sir. What are you keeping an eye on until your next appearance next Thursday?
Well, I'll tell you, Cboe we have a couple of things that are going to start trading soon. One is dispersion futures, which I've been kind of boning up on, and maybe I'll do a little walkthrough with you in a week or two. And then we also have VIX options on VIX futures. So VIX futures options, dispersion futures, I think are in 2 weeks, and then the VIX futures options in October. But kind of growing this ecosystem of index products and volatility focused products, and it'll be interesting to kind of see how it all shakes out.
And RMC is coming up pretty soon, is it not?
Yes, RMC is going to be in Snowbird, Utah. I will be there doing the my song and dance.
Maybe we'll get a live report from the floor, from the Flow Master. What do you think?
Yeah, we can totally do that.
All right. And Mr. Rock Lobster, last but not least, as you're completely distracted by your love affair with Heather Thomas, sir, what are you keeping an eye on till the Monday show?
What are we keeping an eye on until the Monday show? Well, I like to see if we could close into the 1600 into next week, which would then set up a little launch pad propeller for 5,700 the following week. So there's no earnings. There's just Fed. So, I mean, I think as we rally and volatility, again, I think we're rallying a little harder and volatility is coming down a little slower. Still kind of waiting for the confirmation. The market wants that confirmation that it's 25-point drop. And I think the ECB already kind of let the cat out of the bag by saying they're going to cut. So I feel like, that's kind of the way the cookie is crumbling right now.
And that music, listeners, means the cookie has finished crumbling for this episode of the Old OB. But if you need more in your lives, don't worry. I'll be back in a little bit to talk all the action on the futures options side with some fun guests and more on TWIFO in a little bit. So stay tuned for that. If you're on the pro side, of course, that'll be coming into your ear holes post-haste. If you're listening on demand, just hit next on your device of choice. And make sure if you like TWIFO, make sure you're adding the futures rundown. I'm still amazed how many people. I mean, we love you all. If you want to listen to one show, that's fine. If you just want to listen to the option block, hey, we love you all out there. But you're missing the whole network. Nearly a dozen shows out there. So it's always amazing to me. People are like, hey, this show hasn't uploaded yet. It's like, well, you're clearly not subscribed to the network feed. It's all there. So wherever you're listening to this, could be Apple, could be Spotify, could be Audible, YouTube, wherever the hell you get it. Make sure you're getting the full network feed. It gives you everything. Nearly a dozen shows. One more coming at you since middle of last week. So fun stuff out there. Make sure you're getting the full network. And make sure you're checking out the pro while you're at it as well. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro, the place to go to learn more. And let's learn more about Uncle Mike. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, we got a minute or two left here. Tell us more just about you.
Well, I like long walks on the beach, and I despise participation trophies. If you'd like to know even more about me, I am a financial advisor that does delve in the option product when appropriate for clients, of course, which is, I think, a vast majority of the clients that I have. If you're interested in working with a financial advisor, feel free to reach out to me. Go to stcharleswealth.com. Book an appointment with me. We'd love to have a conversation with any of our listeners. And also, we'll have a webinar coming up on Tuesday night next week on covered calls. And so, I'm sorry, that's actually tonight, Thursday night on covered calls. Would love to have you. Follow me on Twitter at Mike Tosaw, Tosaw, to learn more about the webinar train that's coming to your town.
I don't want to open old wounds, but I think you'd have more of a leg to stand on if in the interim between the Rock Lobster's two buzzes, you had also buzzed with your guest. Then you could have had more of a leg to stand on. Say, hey, I was in there too. But he was clearly there first with the Lee Major, so he was on the right track. So give the man his due. It wasn't like, hey, I just handed him a trophy. He at least got the thing right. And you weren't even playing. You weren't even at bat. You weren't swinging. So
it was a false buzz. He should have points taken away from him.
False buzz, he said. All right, we shall see. We'll let the audience decide, as we always do. Maybe we need a flash poll for that. All right, Mr. Rock Lobster, since you have been invoked, and you're probably still happy with your 1.5 from the fall guy this week. What else are you keeping an eye on, sir? Or I should say, where else should people go if they want to maybe discuss the Heathers from the 80s with you?
I just never saw it. It's the first time. I don't think Tosaw had the answer. That was I don't think he was born yet.
That's why he's so angry. He did not have the answer. That's why he's so angry.
You go to optionpit.com. Put your learning on where you earn while you learn. Get our trades and all kinds of how to trade options, a million different ways, learning how options work. So that's optionpit.com. You heard the show, 10% off. Just tell them, say, hey, I heard the show. I want my 10% off. There you go. We've been doing this for, a long time now. 12, 14. Well, I've been on this show for 14 years. So that's a long time. Holy God.
Have you been on this show that long? I don't know. I'll have to go check. Has this show been going?
I think I did my first one in 2010.
Oh. I'll have to go check and see.
I did one, and then I was back a year later, I think.
Yeah, you did one from like the street.com or something.
Yep.
I'll have to go see if that was this show or something else. But we shall see. Listen, we'll go into the archives, which are nearly 5,000 episodes in the archives I saw the other day. So that's pretty scary. And not for this show, obviously for the full network. So if you want your 10,000 hours, there's 5,000 of it right there, listeners. All right. And Mr. Rock Lobster, sir. Oh, excuse me, I apologize. Mr. Flowmaster, last but not least, sir. You hit on some cool stuff. If folks want to check it all out for themselves, where should they go? What should they do?
Cboe.com/RMA for all of our platforms and data offerings. And then also there's I might have mentioned it last week, but there's a pretty cool blog post I wrote on flex options. Just go to Cboe/insights and look around. You should be able to find it.
We did a breakdown of it a couple of weeks on the show, listeners. Go check it out if you haven't. The Flowmaster always includes some cool visuals. So if you're one of those visual learners that don't like to read the words, you want to see some pretty pictures, Flowmaster's got you covered over there on the Cboe Insights blog as well. And of course, you can get it all Cboe.com/RMA. I'm looking forward to our man on the street coverage coming up in a little bit from RMC. I think Dr. Bix will be out there too, so we'll have a couple of people out there, I believe, to give us man on the street coverage. Of course, back again in a little bit for TWIFO. Back again tomorrow, noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern for Vol Views. Who's going to join us? Got to tune in to find out. And then back again after that one final time, exclusively for all you cool cats and kittens hanging out in the secret club. We're back to talk about all this crazy stuff, VIX puts, Portillos, SVIX calls, you name it, on Options Oddities. A lot of bangers going on out there. If you missed the last month of Options Oddities, you're going to be kicking yourself. So check it out, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. Then back again on Monday for a little bit of the option block. Stay safe out there.
The Option Block is brought to you by Cboe. Cboe's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Cboe Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively Cboe. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the Cboe products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.